I woke up to my alien roommate straddling me. Then she whispered something that changed everything. It wasn't someone trying to scare him or even a bad dream. It was real. Above him, a figure moved cautiously. It wasn't human. Lyra, his alien roommate. She had greenish skin that shimmered faintly in the dim emergency lighting of the station. Her large, expressive eyes were wide, staring into his own. Her thin hands rested on the bed's edges to steady herself. But what froze Ethan in place wasn't her appearance, it was the look on her face. Terror. "Stay quiet," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost a hiss, yet urgent. "Don't make a sound." Ethan blinked, trying to focus. "Lyra, what?" His words felt heavy, wrong, like speaking would summon danger. "You wouldn't understand," she said, glancing toward the darkness of the corridor outside his room. Humans weren't supposed to survive this. Her words made no sense at first. Then the low hum of the station's emergency systems confirmed it. Something was wrong. The usual background noise of life support, of ships docking and departing, was gone. The station was silent. "Survive what?" Ethan asked. He tried to sit up. Lyra shifted, gently pressing him back against the bed. "The purge," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but not from fear alone. There was urgency, determination. The station's governing species activated it this morning. They remove life support selectively. Humans aren't prioritized. Most humans," she stopped, gulped, "don't even last 2 minutes in unprotected sectors." Ethan's mind froze, his pulse quickened. He had read about station protocols, about hierarchical life support systems, but he had never imagined a targeted purge. He had come to this station as part of an exchange program, curious, excited, not prepared for survival against his own species. "What do you mean, selectively? And why me? Why humans?" Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Because you're unpredictable," Lyra said. "You adapt, you endure. The governing species doesn't understand humans, they underestimate you." Ethan's chest tightened. His mind raced. He had survived harsh conditions on Earth, freezing nights, desert drills, but nothing like this. Now everything depended on understanding the station before it finished shutting down. Lyra slid off him and gestured toward the door. "We have minutes, maybe less. I can guide you, but you have to trust me. No mistakes." Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. "Then let's move." They slipped into the hallways. The lights were dim, and emergency panels flickered weakly. Every shadow seemed alive. Ethan noticed that the corridors weren't empty. Alien residents moved too, but unlike humans, they stayed frozen, waiting, panicking silently. Some seemed paralyzed. Others whispered in their native tongues, confused and frightened. Lyra led him to a small junction hub, her hands deftly pressing access panels. The purge works sector by sector. Life support shuts down, oxygen drops, temperatures fall. It's designed to scare, to kill slowly. Ethan shivered. He could feel the temperature drop, the faint hiss of failing systems. His body, honed on Earth for endurance, reacted differently from the aliens. He didn't panic. Instead, he calculated, rationed his breath, and controlled his pulse. "You're calm," Lyra said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "None of the others react like this. They freeze, they scream, they shut down, but you—" Ethan didn't answer. There was no time for explanations. They reached a locked door with a flashing red light. Lyra pulled out a small device, sliding it into the access panel. Within seconds, the lock disengaged. Beyond the door was a corridor Ethan had never noticed before. Emergency lights painted the walls in shades of amber. He could hear the faint hum of failing systems. A panel nearby indicated oxygen levels falling rapidly in the outer sectors. "Here's the problem," Lyra said, pointing to the map. "The purge is calculated. Humans are not supposed to survive. You are not supposed to survive. And yet," she shook her head, eyes wide, "you are still breathing." Ethan swallowed. "So, what do? "We survive," Lyra said simply. "And maybe we show them humans aren't what they think." As they moved, Lyra explained what had happened. The station was governed by an alien council that prioritized efficiency over emotion. They viewed humans as fragile, irrational, and expendable. When a technical glitch occurred, instead of fixing it, they activated a selective system shutdown. Life support would continue for those deemed important, while others would be left to fail quietly. Humans, according to the council, were low on the list, but Lyra had observed something they hadn't. Humans adapt. Humans endure. Humans think creatively when technology fails. You survive because you are human, she whispered. Not because you're stronger, not because you're smarter, but because your species never gives up, even when hope disappears. Ethan felt a strange pride. Fear still coursed through him, but it was no longer paralyzing. The fear sharpened his mind. He scanned the corridors, checking air vents, emergency ladders, and service shafts. "We can reach the central hub," he said, pointing. "We can restore power, manually override life support." Lyra blinked. "Humans, you really think you can?" "I don't know yet," Ethan admitted. "But we have to try. The others," he nodded toward frozen alien residents. "They're not moving. We can't just survive for ourselves." As they moved forward, the purge's effects became more obvious. Panels flickered and shut down completely. Hallways that once thrummed with life were now eerily silent. Oxygen levels in distant sectors plummeted, causing a few faint alarms to shriek before failing. Aliens who tried to move without Lyra's guidance collapsed or froze, overwhelmed by the sudden environmental shifts. Ethan noticed the first difference. He and Lyra could breathe steadily, even as the temperature dropped slightly and oxygen levels became thin. Humans' bodies, he realized, were adapted for extreme survival, pressure, low oxygen, cold, starvation. Small advantages, but crucial in situations like this. "Follow me," Lyra said, taking the lead through a maintenance corridor. "We can reach the emergency override, but it won't be easy." The station isn't built for humans to manipulate. It's built for species with 6 limbs, integrated neural links, or organic interfaces. Ethan grinned faintly. "Good thing humans are inventive." Lyra stared at him, a mixture of surprise and cautious admiration. "You really believe in your species," Ethan shrugged. "We survive, we endure, and if the station doesn't expect us to, that's even better." As they approached a junction, a loud hiss echoed behind them. One of the sealed doors had failed, releasing a sudden burst of cold, thin air into the hallway. Lyra froze for a second, then laughed nervously. "You humans," she said. "You're different." They pressed forward, navigating service tunnels, old stairwells, and maintenance shafts. Ethan's mind worked fast, thinking about pressure points, airflow, temperature, and structural weaknesses. He found manual override panels designed to be nearly inaccessible, requiring strength, multiple limbs, or integrated neural access. Humans had neither. But humans had creativity. He ripped open panels with tools, jammed open doors with old braces, and rerouted emergency lines using cable scraps. Hours, or maybe minutes, it was impossible to tell, passed in tense silence. They finally reached a central junction. Lights flickered weakly. A holographic map displayed the station's sectors, showing where life support had failed. Humans were barely alive in outer sectors. Aliens had collapsed or were frozen in panic. Ethan scanned the display. "We can reroute power manually," he said. "We can stabilize the outer sectors. It'll take time and effort, but it's possible." Lyra blinked. "You can actually do it." "I can try," Ethan said. "And I won't stop until everyone is breathing again." Lyra's eyes shimmered. "Then maybe humans aren't weak after all." For the first time, Ethan allowed himself a small, proud smile. The purge hadn't killed him. It hadn't killed the human instinct to survive. If anything, it had awakened it. As the first part of their journey ended, Ethan and Lyra prepared for the next challenge. Moving deeper into the station, restoring life support, and proving to the governing species what humans were truly capable of. They were alone in most corridors, but Ethan's heart was steady. Fear existed, yes, but determination was stronger. And for the first time, Lyra realized that humans weren't just survivors. They were a force the galaxy had never fully understood. Ethan and Lyra moved through the station's dim corridors like shadows, careful with every step. The flickering lights created long, wavering shadows that stretched across the walls. In some parts of the station, oxygen levels were dropping fast, and the faint hiss of failing life support filled the halls like a warning. Alien residents were scattered everywhere, frozen in panic or curled on the floors. Some tried to move but collapsed almost instantly. "This is worse than I imagined," Lyra said quietly. Her voice trembled, but Ethan noticed something new: determination. She had feared humans were weak, fragile, easily outmatched. Now she saw him endure calmly in conditions that should have killed most species. Ethan nodded, scanning a maintenance panel. "They underestimated humans," he said. "They think we break under pressure, but we don't." He ran his fingers over the exposed wires and flickering screens. "We adapt, and we'll prove it." Lyra's large eyes widened. "You're not just surviving, you're thinking. Most species don't even try when the system fails. They panic and shut down. Humans," she trailed off, letting him finish the thought, "we keep going." Their next goal was the central life support hub, a sprawling control room that maintained oxygen, temperature, and power throughout the station. The governing species had expected it to be impossible for humans to reach or manipulate. They hadn't accounted for human ingenuity. The path to the hub wasn't easy. Several doors were sealed by the purge, requiring multiple alien appendages or specialized neural access to open. Ethan improvised. He found a long metal rod in the maintenance corridor and used it to jam a door panel open. When a vent system was blocked, he crawled through it, stretching his human body into spaces no alien could fit. Lyra followed, amazed. "Humans, you really do find ways." Ethan gave her a small smile. "Desperation helps. Humans are used to problems that can't be solved with strength alone." As they moved, Ethan began waking the human residents scattered across the station. Some were asleep, some frozen in fear. With careful nudges, he guided them through emergency corridors, teaching them to control their breathing and focus on immediate survival instead of panic. "Why are you helping them?" Lyra asked, still skeptical. "Because humans don't abandon each other," Ethan said simply. "We survive and we bring others with us. That's what makes us different." Slowly, the small group of humans grew. They moved as a single unit, each person aware of their role. Some carried tools, some monitored oxygen levels, some guided aliens who were still mobile but scared. The first real test came in the outer sector. A massive environmental chamber had failed completely. Temperature had dropped below 10 degrees and oxygen levels were dangerously low. Ethan's group could feel the chill biting at their skin. Aliens froze, unable to cope. Ethan didn't panic. He had trained in cold weather survival on Earth. He instructed the humans to breathe slowly, layer their clothing, and keep moving. Using portable tools and scraps from the environment, he built a makeshift seal over the chamber vents, slowing the oxygen loss. He directed a small group to reroute emergency power from nearby panels to sustain the temporary system. Lyra watched in awe. "No one else could do this," she said. "Humans, you actually adapt to situations that should kill you." Ethan glanced at her, noticing a flicker of admiration in her eyes. "Adaptation is survival," he said. "We don't wait for someone else to fix things. We find solutions, even if the odds are against us." Word of their progress spread. Through the station's weak communications system, scattered aliens observed humans moving efficiently, calmly, and purposefully. Some tried to interfere, thinking humans were still fragile. Others simply froze, unsure of how to react to species that refused to be defeated. In one sector, Ethan discovered an alien maintenance team trapped under a fallen beam. Most species would panic, abandon the injured, or wait for help. Ethan's human team lifted the beam using a simple lever system and carried the aliens to a safer corridor. He instructed them to monitor oxygen levels and remain calm. "You saved them?" Lyra asked, astonished. "Even though they're not human," Ethan shrugged. "We survive better when we help others. Humans understand cooperation. That's our strength." As they reached the central hub, the challenges intensified. The main control panels were designed for species with multiple limbs and integrated neural links. Humans could not directly access the systems, but Ethan refused to give up. He and his team used physical tools, improvisation, and clever wiring to bypass the complex access points. They worked tirelessly, taking shifts, supporting each other, and remaining calm under pressure. Hours or maybe minutes, it was hard to tell in the fading emergency lights passed. Lyra watched as humans rerouted power, manually restarting oxygen systems in outer sectors. The flickering panels stabilized. Air began to flow once more. Alien residents who had frozen or collapsed slowly regained composure. "You did it," Lyra whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "You actually did it." Ethan shook his head. "We did it together. Humans alone might survive, but when we organize, help each other, and keep moving, nothing stops us." The governing species began noticing anomalies. Their purge system was failing. Humans were alive where they were meant to die. Aliens were being rescued unexpectedly. Panic spread among the council. They sent monitoring drones to investigate, expecting humans to be weak, scattered, and easily defeated. Instead, the drones observed a coordinated, calm, resilient group. Humans were guiding aliens, repairing systems, and thinking ahead. One drone reported back. Ethan ignored the praise. He was focused on the next steps, restoring full life support and securing the station. He assigned small teams to continue repairs in isolated sectors. Humans moved with precision, communicating silently, using hand signals and nods. The efficiency and calmness were unlike anything the governing species had seen before. In one sector, an alien tried to interfere with their work, believing humans were in over their heads. Ethan approached slowly, maintaining calm. "We are not your enemy," he said. "We are restoring what belongs to everyone. Stand back and help if you can." The alien hesitated, confused. Humans didn't threaten, didn't panic, and didn't give up. Slowly, it assisted, learning from observation rather than fear. By the time they reached the final sector, a pattern had become clear. The purge was failing because it relied on fear and chaos. Humans thrived in chaos. Humans planned, adapted, and kept moving. The governing species had never accounted for this. Ethan paused in the corridor, looking at his team. They were exhausted but determined. Every person was focused on survival and helping others. Lyra stood beside him, watching humans operate with precision, creativity, and endurance. "You've changed everything," she whispered. "Not just for humans, but for everyone," Ethan nodded. "We just survived, but the others saw it. They will never see humans the same way again." The team reached the central life support node. Ethan climbed into a tight maintenance shaft, reaching panels designed to be impossible for humans to manipulate. Using clever wiring and physical tools, he rerouted the final circuits. Lights flickered on. Air began to flow steadily throughout the station. Emergency alarms stopped. Lyra could hardly believe her eyes. Humans had done what no one else could. They had stabilized the entire station using determination, ingenuity, and cooperation. You're amazing," Lyra said, almost breathless. Ethan smiled. "We survive. That's all humans do." For the first time, the governing species had to face reality. Humans were alive, organized, and stronger than they expected. The purge had failed. Aliens were safe, systems were restored, and humans had proved something no one could have predicted. Lyra looked at Ethan and his team. She whispered softly, almost to herself. "And this is only the beginning." The station, once silent and fearful, now hummed with life. Humans had adapted, Humans had endured. Humans had surprised the galaxy. The station hummed with renewed energy. Emergency lights had stabilized. Systems were running again and breathable air flowed steadily into every corridor. Yet, despite the apparent calm, Ethan knew the hardest part wasn't over. The governing species would notice the purge had failed. They would investigate. And they would want answers, answers that could put humans back at risk. He looked around at his team of humans. They were tired, exhausted from hours of improvising repairs, crawling through maintenance shafts, rerouting power and saving aliens. Faces smeared with grease, eyes wide but sharp, they were alive, alert, and ready. That was humanity at its core, relentless endurance even when hope seemed gone. Lyra approached him, her eyes shimmering. "I don't think they've ever seen humans like this," she said softly. "They expected weak, fragile creatures. They didn't expect this." "This," Ethan said, glancing at his team, "is what humans do. We survive. And when we survive, we don't just survive for ourselves. We bring others with us." The next challenge came fast. The station's central communication array had gone offline during the purge. Without it, the governing species could isolate humans from the rest of the galaxy. Ethan knew this. He motioned for Lyra to follow him. "We're restoring communication. If we can show the rest of the station, and beyond, what humans can do, no one will underestimate us again." The corridor to the communication hub was dark, cold, and nearly abandoned. Few aliens had moved, still shaken by the events of the purge. Ethan led the way, pointing out obstacles, improvising solutions, and keeping his team calm. "Human systems thinking is remarkable," Lyra said, stepping carefully over a broken floor panel. "You don't just survive, you adapt, improvise, and organize in ways no one else could imagine." Ethan shrugged. "Necessity is the mother of invention, and humans were very good at invention." At the hub, the situation was more complex than they expected. Panels flashed red, indicating massive failures across multiple systems. Communication relays were damaged. Power fluctuated. Aliens who had tried to intervene earlier had only worsened the issue, unable to think beyond their species-specific limitations. Ethan ignored the blinking alarms. He called over a few of his human team members. "We'll take this in layers. First, stabilize power. Second, reroute the signal lines. Third, manual calibration. Everyone knows their role," nods all around. Humans, unlike most species on the station, didn't argue under pressure. They assessed, planned, and executed. Each member of the team moved with efficiency, improvising tools from scraps, reprogramming circuits, and manually recalibrating sensors. Hours passed, but humans persisted. Even when a panel sparked, Ethan didn't panic. He instructed a teammate to shield it, while he bypassed the wiring using a combination of manual dexterity and quick problem-solving. Other humans worked in tandem, feeding each other information, anticipating failures and adapting instantly when something unexpected occurred. Lyra watched in amazement. "You're unstoppable," she whispered. "Every time there's a problem, you don't give up. You just fix it." Ethan glanced at her. "This isn't just skill, it's human nature. We survive, we endure, and when others fail, we keep moving forward. That's why the purge failed. That's why we're still here." Finally, the communication hub flickered to life. Holographic screens stabilized, showing the station in full operational mode. Oxygen levels normalized, emergency lights brightened, and sensors tracked movement across every corridor. Humans had restored not only life support but the station's networked systems. Ethan activated the main communication relay. A message went out not just to the station but to nearby fleets, colonies, and observers. Simple, factual human words. Humans survived. Humans stabilized the station. Systems are restored. No one was left behind. The effect was instantaneous. Across the station, aliens paused. Some blinked in disbelief. Some whispered among themselves, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. The governing species, monitoring remotely, froze in shock. Their purge had failed. Humans had not only survived, they had restored the station and saved others in the process. Lyra turned to Ethan, her voice trembling. They can't ignore this. They won't underestimate humans again. Ethan nodded. They might try, but they'll remember this. And if we survive this, they'll always remember. As the humans moved through the station, helping repair minor damages, guiding confused aliens and restoring stability, a change began. Aliens who had panicked, frozen, or abandoned their posts were inspired. They began to cooperate, following the example humans had set. A species that once relied entirely on complex protocols and neural interfaces now observed and learned from humans. Simple, adaptable, cooperative humans. In one corner of the station, an alien elder approached Ethan. Your species, you do not fear failure. You do not collapse under pressure. You survive where others fail. How? Ethan smiled, tired but calm. We just keep moving, we help each other, and we don't give up. That's all. Lyra watched the interaction and realized something profound. Humans weren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced species. But when everything else failed, technology, systems, hierarchy, humans kept going. That alone made them a force no one could ignore. Meanwhile, the governing species convened an emergency council. Holographic images of Ethan and his team appeared in the chamber. They were alive, fully operational, stabilizing systems, and helping aliens they had never met before. The council's members were silent. Their purge had been intended to remove weak humans from the station quietly. Instead, humans had restored every failing system, saved countless lives, and demonstrated calm, clear-headed intelligence in extreme conditions. One council member whispered, they were never supposed to survive, and yet, yes, another said, they adapted, they persevered, they changed everything. Back in the central hub, Ethan and Lyra looked over the station. Every corridor now had stable oxygen, functioning lights, and moving residents. Humans had proven something beyond physical endurance. They had demonstrated the true power of human ingenuity, cooperation, and persistence. Lyra whispered to Ethan, her voice filled with awe, I thought I understood humans. I thought I knew what you could do. I was wrong, completely wrong. Ethan looked at her and smiled. Humans are always a surprise. That's why the galaxy should never underestimate us. As the first calm night returned to the station in days, humans gathered in the central hub, sharing small meals, repairing minor damages, and ensuring every alien was safe. Lyra moved among them, silently assisting, still amazed at what she had witnessed. The final step came when Ethan called everyone together. Today, we survived. We stabilized this station, and we showed the galaxy something important. Humans endure, humans adapt, and humans bring others with them. There was no cheering, no fanfare. The moment was quiet but heavy with meaning. Humans exchanged tired smiles. Aliens who had panicked now observed with respect. Even the governing species, watching remotely, had no choice but to acknowledge what had happened. Ethan turned to Lyra. You saw it. Humans don't just survive, they create stability where none exists. We aren't the strongest, we aren't the fastest, but we endure when others fail. That's what makes us remarkable. Lyra nodded. And now the galaxy knows it. For the first time since the purge began, Ethan allowed himself to rest. The station hummed, alive once more. Humans had survived the impossible. They had restored hope where despair reigned. They had not only endured, they had inspired. As night settled over the station, Lyra watched Ethan from across the hub. She whispered softly, almost to herself. We thought humans were weak, fragile, disposable. We were wrong, completely wrong. Humans endure, humans adapt, humans change the rules. Ethan smiled faintly in his sleep, exhausted but at peace. The humans had proven themselves. They had survived the purge, saved countless lives, and reminded the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. And so the station remained alive, a testament to human endurance and ingenuity. Lyra would never forget this day. The galaxy would never forget it. Humans, fragile only in appearance, had proven themselves unstoppable when hope seemed lost. The last light of the day reflected off the station's walls, illuminating the humans as they rested, repaired, and prepared for tomorrow. They were ordinary in some ways, extraordinary in all others. They were human, and the galaxy would never see them the same way again.